My overall vision for this project is to explore the dynamic relation between music and dance in storytelling through the lens of AOI3, Music for Dramatic Impact, Movement and Entertainment. I will achieve this by collaborating with a dancer and drawing inspiration from other musicians to refine and inspire my approach. Through this process, I aim to create a composition that integrates music and movement. I have 3 music and performance goals in which I am striving for. The first being composing music for a dance routine, which includes partnering with a dancer and evoking the intended narrative through both the composition and the routine. Second is creating a composition solely using vocal layers, which includes layering and vocal techniques. And the third being record piece with performer, which includes communicating with performer effectively to establish roles and extract the best performance from the dancer. My rationale includes collaboration, my role and real-life relevance. Collaboration includes working with a non-professional dancer. Their role is they decide the narrative in which they want to convey and the specific dance techniques in which they want to evoke. They must be flexible and we need to have rehearsals both digital and virtual for convenience. My role includes composing music which tells the story in which the dancer wants to tell, and I also need to collect feedback from dancer in ways to improve. The real-life relevance, music is a key component to any dance performance because it enhances storytelling, emotion, and even culture. Some of the resources in which I'll be using include software such as Logic Pro to compose, and also iMovie. The intended timeline includes 1 hour with performer to discuss the narrative and the specific vocal techniques I will be using to provoke it, which will correspond with their routine, 4 hours researching other musicians, 30 hours composing Logic Pro, coming up and executing ideas, 7 hours rehearsing with performer, 10 hours creating presentation, and key dates, finishing research and the composition, and completing the performance. The budget involves Logic Pro, recording/studio technology, which also includes the microphone and cables, and the hypothetical budget is £264.99. Before I began starting my composition and research, I emailed my intended dancer, which the email scene conveys, where I highlight and discuss a vague description of the collaborative project to them, and if they are willing to participate. I then received an email back with them saying they would like to partake, and they suggested to schedule a call to discuss further. I then followed up with an email with my phone number and the specific aspects in which I would go into more detail about during our call, which included their contribution, my contribution, how we would work together as a team, and the specific key dates. One of the initial challenges of collaboration was the time difference between me and my partner. Although it took a while to set a date to call, it was overcome through emailing. During our call, my partner Ella shared her ideas for the composition, which included the following. The narrative speaks on the native world of Australia, from the bush with native bird noises to people with First Nation Aboriginal Australians speaking, to then the ocean. The genre of the dance would be contemporary. There'd be a slow tempo. The dance integrates specific techniques within an improvised routine, enhanced by the composition. While primarily improvised, the dance will reflect the narrative, with key moments of the story conveyed through movement. This will mirror the piece's narrative. For instance, when depicting the bush, the dance will incorporate expressive bird-like gestures, further enhanced by bird sounds in the composition. When beginning my research, I started with investigating key elements of contemporary dance music and found the following aspects which elevate the genre and which I would incorporate into my own composition. First is dynamic range, a mix of intensity and softness, free tempo, and layered sounds. Reflecting on my original musical goals, specifically vocal layering and techniques, I began researching a cappella groups that explore similar themes to those I intend to investigate. This research helped me identify groups that aligned with my musical objectives and incorporate elements of contemporary dance music, allowing me to refine my approach and achieve my intended outcomes. Through this, I discovered Condalilla, composed by Stephen Leake from the Great Southern Spirits, a choir in Australia. The following 20-second audio is the intro to this piece. Looking Looking at the piece, I found elements in which I wanted to evoke and take inspiration for myself within my own composition, which I felt would enhance the intended narrative. This included the following. The tempo was heard to be very free and timeless, indicating a lack of strict rhythmic structure, encouraging an ethereal and improvised feel. Each vocal line enters individually within the introduction, through soprano, alto, but tenor and baritone are heard through a drone singing simultaneously. This overlapping material creates a layered, evolving texture and eventually builds a polyphonic texture where independent vocal lines contribute to the overall atmosphere. Some of the specific vocal techniques in which are evoked is the legato phrases, which indicate ascending and descending melodic fragments, which emphasize motion and contrast, the staccato vocal techniques to mimic bird call noises, first heard at 1 minute and 13 seconds. This is heard to be an Australian lyrebird native to the bushland. Glissando notes to move between phrases, and other ad-libs. The piece starts off with a free tempo, but then moves into a structured 4/4. Through this, it allows for a more emotional freedom, helping establish the mood and the narrative. Starting my composition with a narrative from my collaborator Ella, and taking inspiration from Stephen Leake, I started on the introduction. I wanted it to gradually build up in vocal layers, and so started with 2 vocal layers and ad-libs through staccato, where I was evoking bird noises, mostly lyrebirds as inspired by Stephen Leake. This established the beginning of the narrative of the bush. Leading into the second section, more layers are introduced through upper and lower octave harmonies. This creates an evolving texture, becoming more thick. The bird noises continue, which becomes a motif throughout the piece, making it easier for the listener to recognize when the narrative is in the bush. The vocal layers begin to fade out as the second part of the narrative begins with a sample taken from a First Nation Aboriginal Australian speaking. Backing vocals are heard with repeated legato and vibrato notes. Moving from a free tempo within the introduction, this section follows a standard 4/4. The motif is also still heard in the background, which establishes how the bushland and the First Nations are connected. Once the sample fades out, the narrative shifts into the ocean, marked by a modulation that enhances the emotional impact. This key change reflects the transition in the narrative, creating a sense of movement and depth for the listener. The tempo also moves again into a free tempo. More vocal layers enter through upper octave and lower octave harmonies, which create a thicker texture, where I also added vocal effects such as reverb to mimic the vast open space of an ocean. Once I had finished this, I sent over these first few minutes of the composition to Ella, in order for her to give me feedback on ways to improve. She replied with feedback which highlighted I should make the ocean section of the narrative more distinctive, possibly through wave noises. Taking her notes, I included more layers where I shaped my vocal sounds to capture the movement of waves crashing and flowing, which I thought would also enhance the dancer's movement. The vocal layers fade out, moving into the final section of the narrative, where it goes back into the bush, moving into a thinner texture through less vocal layers. The motif comes back, legato notes are heard, and with a vocal drone in the background, before 3 bird noises finish the piece off. I feel as though I was able to hit my intended musical goals, which included vocal layering and techniques, and I was able to efficiently communicate with my collaborator, where she provided me with feedback to the composition, allowing me to further maintain the intended narrative. Moreover, I was able to effectively stick to my timeline throughout my process. Some of the challenges I faced during this project was when recording. There were many times I had to re-record certain sections because something was off with the audio, but then found it even more challenging when the new recorded audio did not match the others. Either the volume was too loud or muffled. In order to fix this issue, I had to use automation within Logic Pro. The aspect in which developed through the composition the most was being open-minded within the collaborators' constructive feedback, along with researching the way in which dance and music interact together, and to achieve this. Overall, I am happy with my final project. It has taught me how to take inspiration from other composers through research and how to effectively communicate with my collaborator in order to achieve both our intended goals.
Nyanga yi mono koleni anong yudangoro mono anong kujub yudangoro nya jana mokore ngi panya jingo libolan gonjaku wedin jaku jana mbawanga mono palyan jaku kujub yudang palyan jaku jana mbawanga panya jingo libolan gonjaku wedin jaku jana mbawanga mono palyan jaku kujub yudang palyan jaku